Madison moved over to a local food truck. You can see them here on surveillance video from the grub truck down the street on South Main Street. News Nation has confirmed the two women used a private party for a ride home from downtown to their home on King Road. The home is about a mile and a half, or about a 6-minute drive from the food truck. They got home around 1:56 a.m., according to digital evidence collected by investigators. Investigators also say Kaylee and Madison made several calls to an ex-boyfriend of one of the girls 7 times, raising some eyebrows. That person has now been cleared, according to law enforcement. Kaylee Goncalves' sister spoke with News Nation's Chris Cuomo.
There's no boy problem. There's no threat. There's no high-risk lifestyle that could have indicated this. It has taken all of us completely by shock, and we have absolutely no ideas.
Another roommate, Xana Kernodle, and her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, were also out the night of November 12th. Investigators confirm Ethan and Xana were seen at the Sigma Chi fraternity house on the University of Idaho campus. Here's where things get a little shaky. Law enforcement confirms with News Nation Ethan and Xana were seen at the fraternity house around 9 p.m. They reportedly made it back home around 1:45 a.m. Investigators are still trying to piece together what happened between 9 p.m. and 1:45 a.m.
Figure out who they were with, what that was going on, maybe any routes or paths that they took to end up going home, those types of things. Potentially, that is critical to the investigation.
As for the two surviving roommates, they were also out on the night of November 12th in the Moscow community. They returned home by 1 a.m. The two surviving roommates did not wake up until later in the morning on November 13th. That is when they called other friends to the house because they believed one of the second-floor victims had passed out and was not waking up. At 11:58 a.m. on November 13th, a 911 call requested aid for an unconscious person. The call was made from one of the surviving roommates' cell phones inside the residence. Multiple people talked with the 911 dispatcher before Moscow police arrived at the home. Officers discovered Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan dead inside the residence on the 2nd and 3rd floors of the home, suffering from stab wounds.
It was a pretty large knife, so it's really hard to call them puncture wounds. And they were definitely stabbings. And I mean, it has to be somebody that's pretty angry in order to stab 4 people to death.
So many questions unanswered. Authorities remaining tight-lipped, saying there are many details they still simply don't know. Do you know inside the house whether the victims' doors were locked into their individual rooms?
I don't know that.
Do you know were any messages left behind in the house, like almost symbols from the killer? Because sometimes in other cases, you know, if it was like a fetish killing, they would leave something on the body or write something on the wall. Is there anything like that?
I'm not aware of anything like that.
While authorities remain tight-lipped, we are learning other details from the families of the victims. At the vigil on campus Wednesday night, Kaylee's father gave insight into how close his daughter and Madison were discovered, saying the two were found together in the same bed. Earlier this week, there was confusion when law enforcement said there was a miscommunication between police and the county prosecutor about whether this was a targeted attack or not.
My understanding is the investigators believe that whoever's responsible was specifically looking at this particular residence. That's all that they can offer at this point.
The latest from police is they do think the murders were targeted, but police say they have not concluded if the target was the house or one of the occupants. Investigators have also confirmed a 6th person on the lease was not in the home at the time of the murders. And the roommates and friends who lived in this house behind me were so many things to so many people. Jokesters, a fashionista, some prolific photographers. They were really just typical college kids preparing to take on the world.
Guys, can anybody drive me class?
Their friendships so deep.
Did anybody do their chores today? I'm just gonna do it.
The roommates could rock spot-on impressions of one another.
It's 8. Gotta go. Jake's calling. Oh, Jake's calling.
Two of the young women grew up together. Madison Mogan, Maddie from Coeur d'Alene, and best friend Kaylee Goncalves from nearby Rathdrum, Idaho. Roommate Xana Kernodle went to high school close by in Post Falls, and her boyfriend Ethan Chapin from out of state, Mount Vernon, Washington, all coming together at the University of Idaho, the tiny college town of Moscow.
The community is reacting with grief, concern. These were 4 very popular people on campus.
Emotions raw at a community vigil on campus Wednesday, including Ethan Chapin's mother.
My name is Stacy Chapin. I'm Ethan's mom.
Her 20-year-old coming to the university this fall with his brother and sister. Triplets, they were inseparable. Ethan's last day spent accompanying Sister Maisie to her sorority formal. Yet the freshman was usually with his girlfriend, Xana Kernodle, a junior studying marketing and reveling in the pair's growing relationship. A proud post of Mouse and Chef, a playful version of Ratatouille.
And I want people to take this personally because she was everyone's daughter.
Kaylee Goncalves' sister talking to News Nation's Chris Cuomo about her younger sister. Kaylee was finishing her senior year strong, with her best friend, Maddie Mogan, always at her side.
So then they went to high school together. Then they started looking at colleges. They came here together.
From tweens to Lake City High, teachers say the 2 girls never parted. Roommates at the University of Idaho, Maddie did join a different sorority, and the live music lover showed off her marketing skills, running the social media account at the Mad Greek restaurant where she worked.
And in the end, they died together, in the same room, in the same bed.
Thank all the people working on trying to figure this out, and it really means a lot.
Artsy and funky Moscow, Idaho, the perfect backdrop for the college journey.
Hey guys, I know I talk about myself a lot, but like, what would you guys do in my situation?
The home on King Road, which once hosted Forever Friends, now bears visible scars of the unthinkable. 4 young lives taken, who, as shown on Xana's high school graduation cap, had their sights set on giving the world so much more.
Make sure that you spend as much time as possible with those people because time is precious and it's something you can't get back.
It's just so heartbreaking what these families are going through. I had the chance to sit down with the Goncalves family in Kaylee's home. Their loss, it is so heavy, and they have been vocal about their relentless search for justice and frustrations with the investigation. Here is part 1 of our conversation.
You know, she was hurt so bad that she was not able to recover. That is just terrible.
Oh, it's okay.
It's terrible. And I cannot fathom in my head what kind of person did this.
It's capable.
And why. I can't sleep at night. I lay in bed pondering just millions of different scenarios. And just, I want to know, but then there's stuff obviously you don't want to know, you know, but
you just cry.
I think I want to know it all, and
You're okay.
I just don't understand why. How somebody can take somebody, four of them, it wasn't just my girl, just so savagely.
Is anyone acting differently since the murders? I mean, is there anyone that you have a weird feeling about that the girls knew or that comes to mind?
Yeah, I would say not in the immediate circle by any means, but a few of the names that have been circulating around, I think it's hard not to kind of, you know, dig into this. And I don't know how much of that is just because we have so little information from law enforcement and how much of it really is, you know, a sister or a father's intuition. Can you elaborate at all? I don't know. You don't have to give a name, but I mean, is it someone that she knew, or?
I have something to say about that. I just feel like there's been a couple individuals that were cleared very fast. That may not, maybe he shouldn't have been. And yeah.
She had the strong alibi.
Just really fast.
If you can dismiss.
You know, an hour later, and we're like, what? And I don't know. I don't know anything about those individuals. I just know they were people that, you know, definitely should have been looked at, and yeah.
I don't know what would prevent you from sharing somebody's alibi.
Yeah, I think that's what we're struggling with. So it's like, we know what we know. We've, fought for Jack, Kaylee's boyfriend, and, we still stand that way. So I did just kind of want to clear that up while we're talking through this ambiguity that, that's not what we're honing in on here.
We don't want to make more victims out of innocent people.
Exactly.
We definitely don't want to do that.
No. You've mentioned before that you didn't want to have a funeral right now because the killer's still out there. Is that something that you're still thinking about? Are you nervous at all? I mean, because in Moscow, we talked to students. People are really nervous there.
They should be.
Yeah.
This targeted to me, it seems behavior-based. That's why I don't like it, and it kind of pits the parents against each other. So I don't like that. I just told some of the other parents today that if your daughter has no ill will from me, man. To me, if you go have a couple beers or go out and hang out with your friends and then come home and go to bed, if that's your target, then I think we all do that. I think we all come home and go to our beds.
It's all target.
Yeah, so
it's kind of a bad word then. It doesn't really make sense in some ways.
Exactly.
Even the prosecutor told me that.
Yeah.
He said, I think it was kind of a weird word to choose.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it makes sense if there was some bad behavior that they did. Let's say, I don't know, they came from a strip club or something, and then somebody followed them home. That's a targeted thing. That's what comes. I've had innocent people that were interviewed that were their neighbors, and they said, I'd be a lot more scared if it wasn't targeted.
Yeah.
Because I'm not doing anything to target me. And I'm like, well, if targeting's just going to bed with your friends.
So maybe that was just a way to calm people down?
Yeah, I feel like it was strategic.
Yeah.
It was a strategic way to keep people from hitting the door, transferring out, and turning that place into a ghost town.
You never think you're going to lose your little sister. Ever. Yeah. You never think you're going to have to bury your daughter.
Absolutely unbelievable. It's nothing compared to the pain that I feel.
Yeah.
Losing Kaylee. And I don't know. It's several things. It's her age. It's how it happened.
It's her life.
Why it happened. Who did this to her?
Just graduated.
Who did this to her and her friends? The fact that she was with her best friend. Since they were little girls.
That family tonight is so heartbroken. I've been in touch with them. It's literally unimaginable to think about what they are going through, but they are so determined to find this killer, and they say they are going to keep the pressure on the police until that happens. Okay, coming up, we're going to talk more about that breaking news that we learned about just tonight about the condition of the bodies. We are live tonight from Moscow, Idaho. Up next, Xana's mom breaks her silence for the first time.
We need more answers.
And internet sleuths are on the case.
And this is my theory on multiple parts of the case, okay?
But when does it help the investigation, and when does it go too far?
This is day 16, and it doesn't feel a whole lot different than day 1. Our senior national correspondent, Brian Enton, is our eyes and our ears in Moscow, Idaho. I'm really wondering if they're tight-lipped or if they really just don't have a clue.
Are there persons of interest?
I'm not aware of any single person.
They died together in the same room, in the same bed.
Just within the span of 24 hours, 2 entirely different stories.
And I've got some breaking news that's going to help clear this up.
Brian Enton, just a superb job as always.
I get bladder leaks. I didn't want to feel like I was wearing the pads I wore when I was 12.
Then I tried the Always Discreet pads.
They fit perfectly in the place they're supposed to.
Look how much it holds.
I'm Brian Enton, live in Moscow, Idaho tonight. The murder mystery has reignited the murder here. The online sleuthing community who gained notoriety during the search for Gabby Petito in 2021. We are talking about the armchair detectives, people who sift through social media looking for any possible clue. And in the vacuum of information from Moscow police, their voices are louder than ever. Here's News the Nation's Ashley Banfield.
What we know is that 6 missed calls were made from Kaylee to Jack's phone, her ex-boyfriend.
From the start, amateur investigators shared their theories on the Moscow, Idaho quadruple murders. The case has gripped the nation. People are craving as much information as possible, trying to put the pieces together themselves.
I'm going to talk about the slayings in Moscow, Idaho.
I'm wondering if it was a friend, not one of the roommates.
This is just as pretty much everybody talking about this case, pure speculation.
Partly fueled by a lack of information from the police.
Everybody has an opinion and they want to come out and say it. And so what that does is that detracts from the public's ability to trust the information that's out there.
Police have always had to work around rumors. They sift through leads, discarding the hoaxes and the hearsay to try to get to the credible tips. But the sheer volume of tips in this case could take a toll on police resources. But they could also crack the case. Nearly 500 digital media tips have come in to an FBI page dedicated to the case. The Moscow police are on rumor control, both on their website and during their news conferences. Often, the rumors get started on social media.
Okay, I have no qualifications to be speaking on the Idaho murders other than the fact that I just have been keeping up with them, and this is my theory on multiple parts of the case, okay?
Social media sites seizing the moment, setting algorithms to gain traction on the Idaho case. TikTok posts with the hashtag Idaho Murders have more than 90 million views. Reddit forums with 27,000 members, and private Facebook groups, each with tens of thousands of people, are all talking about the Idaho murders and are ripe with wild speculation, many delving into Kaylee, Xana, Madison, and Ethan's own social media accounts. But these crowdsourced investigations can also ruin lives as they track down so-called suspects on their own. First, it was the young man in the hoodie seen at the food truck in a video that surfaced days after the murders. Police were flooded with questions about who he was.
I think a lot of people were curious about that person. We were able to identify him.
Police have since cleared that man, but online sleuths soon turned their attention to a new suspect, a neighbor of the victims named Jeremy Reagan. He's a third-year law student at the University of Idaho and gave a TV interview about the comings and goings at the house where the kids were murdered. He admits that he'd given a nervous smile while talking about the crime. Some viewers took issue and made him a target. Soon he moved from target to suspect, and it was open season on the internet.
People online have just been ruthless. They went through and gone through all of my social media history over the past decade, partly because of all the reports that the people had sent in about me in the interview I did.
Reagan has spoken with the police and even volunteered his DNA. But when he didn't hear back from the officers, he simply went to the station himself and gave police a sample. But as amateur investigators continue to dig deep into his personal life, contacting his friends and his family, Jeremy is now so concerned that he carries a pistol for protection. Amateur detectives have had some success before. During the Gabby Petito case, social media hashtags exploded with billions of views. It was social media users that put many of the pieces together and gave police strong clues as to where to look. Back in Moscow, Idaho, with every day that the 4 murders go unsolved, the online investigative community is sure to grow. Each wanting to be the cyber sleuth that unlocks the mystery and solves the crime. But at what cost to the professional investigators and to the public?
And Ashley Banfield joins me now. Ashley, you have been on this story since the very beginning. You've been doing it every single night on your show. We know with the Gabby Petito case, the online sleuths really had an impact, helped solve what happened. Do you think that could happen in this case?
So the reality is, Brian, that every police officer will tell you when trying to solve a case, there is no detail that is too small. And they ask the public to bring forth any details because sometimes that minute detail can be the linchpin that opens up an entire other set of facts. Well, I don't know how many total officers have eyes on this, but, you know, it's upwards of maybe somewhere below 100. And with the online community, they may be able to triangulate some details between photos that may go missed by the detectives on the case. So in one circumstance, it is highly effective to have that many more eyes that could point out something that's critical to the case. But as we just heard, it can also be detrimental, Brian, to Jeremy Reagan and people like him who all of a sudden become targets for attacks. And those attacks can be relentless. I will also say this, Brian, it is not as though an online community hasn't had incredible success before. You mentioned Gabby Petito. There was also a serial killer in Canada that the online community found before the police found him, and the police ignored them. So there are some lessons to be learned from that, and there are some things the community can actually help with in terms of investigation.
And you mentioned Jeremy. I saw him on your show the other night. He actually lives right down the way here. I can see his apartment from where I'm standing. You can't help but feel bad for that guy. I heard him on your show say that he actually went to the police station to give up his own DNA just because he wanted to clear his name. All right, Ashley, don't go anywhere, because we are going to talk to you about this breaking news that we talked about at the top of the show, the new revelations that we have confirmed about the conditions of the bodies, what that might mean in terms of who was targeted. We're going to get to that coming up right after this break. We are live from Moscow, Idaho tonight. Still ahead, a confounding crime scene. How did a killer seemingly go in and out of the house without a trace? And reality is not always what you see on TV.
We call it the CSI effect, that some people think, well, we should be able to do this.
Our exclusive look inside the Idaho State Crime Lab.
Bye-bye, cough.
Later.
I'm Brian Enton, live in Moscow, Idaho tonight, where we continue to look into the murders that happened in the house behind me. 4 innocent college students now 3 weeks ago. Still no significant developments, still no named suspect, still no named persons of interest. I want to bring back in Ashley Banfield. And Ashley, I've been looking forward to this because I want to talk to you about this new information that we confirmed just before the special today. The new information is that Kaylee Goncalves' injuries were significantly more brutal. That is what I can say. Significantly more brutal than her best friend Maddie's injuries. What do you make of that new piece of information, Ashley?
Well, it's astounding, for one, because this is the first time, Brian, that you've been able to get the kind of information that helps us to perhaps try to figure out why this happened. Not saying this is definitive, but it certainly is one additional clue as to whether perhaps Kaylee might have been the target. But you got more information that makes it almost more complicated, and that is where the girls were found. So walk us through what you discovered today, because many of us didn't know which room when Kaylee's father said they were found in the same room and in the same bed.
Yeah, let me show you, Ashley. I want to take you up the hill here and get you oriented. This is the front of the house. There's now private security out front. And oh my, because it's going and it's very, very slippery. But we're going to walk you up to the back of the house. No windows on the side of the house. You've got the front door obviously on the front, which we know has the coded lock. On the back of the house, though, is where the bedrooms are. Confirmed that Kaylee's injuries.
Brian, I think we just lost your mic, and I'm not sure. There, no, you're back. You're back. Can you just repeat what you said in the last 10 seconds? Your mic went dead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was explaining that we confirmed that Kaylee's injuries were more significantly brutal than Maddie's. We've also confirmed that they were on the 3rd floor. I'm going to have Mo show you. 3rd floor here, where not easy access. You've got the balcony. There's a slider. You can't easily jump up there. So what this has us wondering, Ashley, and I want you to kind of walk through this with me. If Kaylee's injuries were the most severe up on the 3rd floor, and there's no way out of the 3rd floor, would that mean the killer specifically targeted the 3rd floor? Because it doesn't make any sense. Why would the killer go up to a floor where there would not be an easy exit for him? What do you make of that, Ashley?
Well, it's It's significant in that we still don't know where the killings began. Did they begin on the second floor where Xana Kernodle's room was? And of course, Ethan had been staying over that night. And we now know that that room was the room on the far side of the house. So not the side of the house that you're on right now, on the other side of the house at the front of the house. That's Xana and Ethan's. And then did they progress to the third floor? And while your mic was cutting out, I think the key piece of information that the audience couldn't hear was which room upstairs on the third floor the girls were actually found in. That before now, we only knew they were found together, but we didn't know in Maddie's room or in Kaylee's room. And so as we look at the third floor map right there, bedroom number E, or bedroom E, is Maddie's bedroom, and it looks out the back of the house. And bedroom F is Kaylee's bedroom, and it looks out the front, but also the back where the slider is. So what did you discover about which room? Maddie's room on the left or Kaylee's room on the right?
That's right. We've confirmed that they were in Maddie's room, which is also interesting. That's something that we did not know. So Kaylee's injuries were significantly more brutal, but they were sleeping together in Maddie's room. So that helps put the puzzle together. There's also something new that helped put the puzzle together, and it was on your show. It was an exclusive interview you had on your show Friday night with Xana's mother. We had never heard from her before. She called into your show. I want to play what she said, and then we can talk about it on the other side, Ashley.
Her father mentioned to me that he had just went and replaced the lock the weekend before.
You said her father mentioned to you that they had replaced the lock?
Yes, that he had, or he had fixed it or something. But yeah, he said that he had fixed it the week before, just to make sure
the week before.
It was still, yeah. I do not think it was the house that was targeted. I believe wholeheartedly that it was those kids who were targeted. They weren't just acquaintances. These kids were like best friends. They practically were family. These kids were tight-knit. They were good friends. They were like family. They were around each other constantly. They did everything together. How could it not be a planned thing? You know, how could it not have been targeted?
Voice of Xana's mom here?
Okay, so, yeah. I wanted to ask you, Ashley, two significant things that stood out to me during that interview. Number one, what she said about the door locks. Number two, that she feels that, I think she put it, these kids were targeted. Talk to me about why those two things, I mean, they're new, and what do they mean?
Critical, and I just wanted to make sure that our viewers knew that was the voice of Xana's mom. She wasn't on video because she's so distraught. That was just her voice that we heard. But she said that the locks had been worked on by Steve, or rather by Jeff Kernodle, Xana's dad, just the weekend before. She couldn't confirm whether the lock that he had fixed was on Xana's room or whether it was a lock to the outside of the house. But I did say, did the rooms have individual locks? And she believed that Xana's room did have a lock. So very, very significant, because we've been trying to figure out, and there's a picture right there on the screen on the left-hand side, is what one of the rooms in the house used to have in it, a coded lock to get into an individual bedroom, and that each bedroom had a coded lock. That was 3 years ago, and we're not sure if each bedroom still has a coded lock. But it's critical because we've tried to figure out, how did the killer get in to a locked bedroom, and then how did the door perhaps get locked on the way out so that the roommates couldn't get in and thought someone was passed out on the other side? That's critical. But I also think it's very critical that she thinks that the target was the kids, not the home, and that it was someone they knew and trusted. And then one more thing, Brian, about the fact that the girls were found in Maddie's room and not Kaylee's room. I think it's important for our viewers to know that Kaylee was in the process of moving out. So it's possible that many of her things were scattered all over the bed, or the bed was in pieces or had no bedding, and that's why she might have been in her best friend's room. But if the killer went into Maddie's room and yet Kaylee had more injuries, and it's dark, it's the middle of the night, this complicates things even more. Because if Kaylee was the target, then how would the killer know which one of the girls that was in Maddie's room if they were sleeping, because they look a lot alike, and in the dark it would be very tricky to tell, and certainly it wasn't Kaylee's room. So very, very big find that you've discovered, but even more complicating.
Yeah, certainly some big developments tonight that really help us piece together the story. Ashley, I know you've been covering this every single night on your show. You and I have been on the phone late at night discussing all of this, and we'll continue to do the same thing next week. Ashley, thanks so much for coming on tonight.
You bet.
Okay, we've still got a lot more to come. We are live in Moscow, Idaho tonight. A News Nation exclusive, a look inside the crime lab system that handles all homicides in Idaho as we dig into the physical evidence the killer might have left behind, plus unimaginable loss. A lot of people have been wondering if Kaylee had a stalker, if that was really true. And new information from a family taking justice into their own hands.
Who's on it with Jardians?
Free, jump. We're the ones